Alright guys, since I have to end up taking apart this again anyways, I just put the low pressure valve in there, and I think for some reason my spring on my poppet is having issues. Like if you see here, see look, I can push my bolt pin all the way forward. Usually there's a space in there where you push it against the poppet, and that's what makes the gun fire. So basically the bolt sticks forward. If you dry fire it with air, it'll work with paint, and that's why it was kind of shitty when I did that comparison video, but I'll probably put more videos of me shooting this once I get everything dialed back in. So anyways, I gotta take it apart again. I gotta do a little bit of work on it. So since I gotta do that, I might as well show you guys how to take it apart. Now, it'd be nice if you had like an Allen key set like this and not like this, although I do keep this in the toolbox, and this is rather nice. You know, make sure with this marker, if you're gonna get Allen keys like this, really, you know what, if you get any set, make sure you get ball points, okay? Ball points basically lets you get it at a weird angle, so you don't have to come in completely straight and unscrew the screws without stripping them or anything like that. So I'm actually going to use this Allen key set. These are not ball point, or you know, not ball set, but they're actually, you know, they're individual, so it should be a little easier to unscrew, like screws here, and stuff like that. So anyways, we'll go ahead and get into it. Now, you don't have to remove everything I'm doing, but I'm doing a full check. Like for instance, you technically don't even have to remove the bolt. You don't have to remove the RAM. Although I know in most videos they show people doing it. You don't even have to remove the reg or the LPR, but it does make it, the less parts in there, it makes it easier to work with the gun, and that's also less to get scratched up. Especially when you're taking out like these screws right here, it's easy to scratch your LPR. And especially that this is a polished gun. And that's actually nice, because when I first started getting into high-end guns and stuff like that, probably around 2003, maybe even 2002, almost everything was polished. They didn't really have too many dust guns. And then, you know, probably around when I got back into the sport around 2009, I came back and everything was like, you know, because I stopped playing for a few years, everything was dust, and I always liked the polished better, so it was nice to see a polished gun. But the issue with the polished guns, they always get these little micro scratches in them. You know, and it's easier to get the big scratches too. The dust actually have a you know, stronger finish. So anyways, I guess we'll go ahead and start by removing the RAM cap again. Like I said, you do not have to do this. Actually, I'm going to use this Allen key set just because I already know which Allen keys I need off of this. And something to mention with this RAM cap too is I actually, luckily I had an extra O-ring. It came with a little parts kit. I don't know if all of them come with one, but the O-ring that goes around here on the RAM cap, there's a tiny little thin O-ring. Sometimes it'll be weird to put on your RAM cap. It doesn't feel like it went on right, or you have to push it on. Do not do that. You want to make sure it has a nice snap in, or it feels like you don't really need a lot of force, because what happens is that little O-ring on the outside gets actually caught on the edges around the gun, and it'll actually break the O-ring, and I noticed you lose a little bit of air efficiency while you're using it, because sometimes the leak might not be big enough to where you notice it. So anyways, to take out the RAM, you can either just hit the bottom of it, or I just stick an Allen key in the top of the gun and use it as a bolt pin, take it out. Okay, so next step is we go ahead and take off the feed neck. It's basically just like an Ego feed neck. I mean, a little different, but this actually does have to come off. There's a bottom screw here if it'll go in there. These aren't, like I said, these aren't ball points, so they don't go in the easiest. But, oh, you know what, because I'm using the wrong one. I'm stupid. I thought it was that one. Anyways, so, yeah, you don't even have to touch the top screw. You just loosen up the bottom one and basically take it out, but you don't have to. Feed neck comes off. After the feed neck, I guess we'll go ahead and hit up the eyes. Obviously, first you got to go ahead and take off the eye covers. Oops, wrong one. I'm not used to using this set. This is a set I keep out in my garage. It's missing a couple Allen keys, and I just kind of use it for other projects, if you know what I mean. It's kind of like my non-paintball Allen key set, but it's what was easiest to get to right now. So that wasn't, you know, one of those little kit things. So anyways, you want to go ahead and take that off. Be careful, there is a spring right here for the detents. I don't know if you can see that. So if you're taking this apart upside down, make sure you watch out for the spring. My spring doesn't always fall out. It's sitting there in the detent. If my camera will focus here. It doesn't always fall out, but it can, and you definitely don't want that to fall out because you want to have the right pressure on here. You might be able to mod it with the pen spring, but that's you know, still a risk you have of either wearing your bolt out faster from it being too strong, or your detent or something like that. So, oops. And then I usually keep them together. That's why I like having a mat like this. It's easy to keep things together. They don't roll off. Next thing you need is a Phillips head screwdriver, and you should really have a rather small one. This one's actually pretty big, but because of the angle of the actual head on it, it works on small ones. So anyways, we'll go ahead and take that off if it'll come off now. Come on. Uh-oh. And put that to the side. I usually like to keep everything on each side, whether it can go on either side or not. I just flip it off, and you can pull. This board's actually fairly easy to pull off the eye wires. Try not to pull on the wire, pull on the white part here. You don't want to unplug the wires. And if you have 4 CIs, you have to be a lot more careful about pulling this eye off, but these are only 2 CIs, and really you can grab it by the edge here, so not a big deal. And we're going to do the same on the other side. Next, I actually noticed I don't have the right Allen key size for this, so I have to use my little kit here. You got to take off the 2 screws that hold the front piece of the body on. Alright. And of course, since I'm using this kit is ballpoint, which is really the only reason I can even use it, but it's very hard to get without scratching it, so you're going to have to excuse the camera here if you can't see a lot. Definitely don't want to leave scratches on such a beautiful gun. And there it goes, comes out. And same thing with this, I usually like to separate what side it's on. I keep it with the same side the eye covers are on, just so it's one less thing to remember. And go ahead and do the same on the other side. The 2 screws off. The last screw you got to take off is right here at the bottom. And as you can see, other than this screw right here, this doesn't even have to come all the way out. Okay? There's nothing else holding this front piece on, and if you look here, I am tugging at it right now. And you can not see a gap. It's not twisting at all. So people worrying about this gun coming apart, you know, because of the two halves thing, it's not, the worry about it isn't even warranted, to say the least. So we'll go ahead and take off our last screw here, and I'm actually going to have to get pliers in a second probably to pop it out, to do things by hand. Okay, there's a screw, I'll leave it there, and apart come the 2 halves of the body. Be very careful, take it apart slowly, and you know, do it over a mat or something, because there are O-rings in these holes. The body is obviously channeled, it doesn't have macro lines on it, so the body, inside of the body is obviously channeled. It's got to have O-rings in it, obviously, to seal the air. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of pounds of pressure per square inch of air, so you know, there's seals all over the place. I think you got 4 main ones. You've got one right here, right where the poppet is. You've got 2 little ones right below it. They're kind of in the trigger frame there. I don't know if you can see that. There's 2 ones. And then you got the one that's actually in the trigger guard, and that kind of surprises me. It looks like air actually goes through the trigger guard here. That's kind of cool. I still can't fit RF in the trigger frame now. So, anyways, next what you got is your poppet spring. And this is what I personally think is going on here. I think I have a problem. My spring is sticking. I'm not going to get into my problem right now. So I'm going to set that aside. And now to get the poppet out, I need pliers. Now you need something with good grip. It looks like you need something small, but the poppet actually kind of sticks out a little bit. So these are actually a decent sized pliers, because my tiny needle nose don't have grip on them and they're hard to take stuff out, and I'm not trying to slip around with this thing or damage the head. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out nice and easy. Use good grip. Because if you don't use good grip, you're going to slip on the head, and I don't know what doing damage to the head will do. But the low pressure pop does come with the replacement head. But that's still, you know, you don't want to screw around with that. But you don't want to put too much pressure that you actually screw up the head. So you got the head out. And to further take apart the gun at this point, I'm not going to do that right now. But basically what you would do is you would take the grips off, okay? And you would take the trigger screw out too, and the trigger comes straight out actually of the frame without having to do that. But anyways, you would take the grips off with the 3 screws. That's pretty easy. You can remove the board, and obviously with this G6R it's got the screen, so there's actually a separate screen in here, or separate board for the screen, and that takes a couple Allen key screws. I've actually taken it out before. And then what you would do is, I believe there's another screw up here in the frame when you take the grips off, and then the grip will come separate from the body. And then you basically have your solenoid and your manifold. Now, Bob Long says not to mess with that stuff. You can take it apart, but he basically says don't, because it's very tricky, and I completely believe him on that, because this is an internally routed gun, and if you see some of the complications to it, especially with its efficiency ratings, you know, that's not something I really want to mess around with. You shouldn't really need to touch it anyways. Even on markers where you are supposed to actually mess around with the solenoid, you only have to do it maybe like once a year at max. I mean, you know, at max, you know, really you're not supposed to touch it for, you know, 5 years or something. But anyways, oh, and then the one other thing is on the front body. You can take this little thing off. It's essentially a reg extender, but Bob Long says it basically helps the flow on the regular. It helps distinguish the flow from the incoming from the outcoming air on the high pressure regulator, I think is what he said. So you don't really need to take this off either, and for some reason mine is stuck on there very hard. Don't know why, but you don't need to mess with that anyways, so I'm not going to. I mean, there's really no reason to mess with it unless it's clogged. Which would be pretty obvious. So, other than that, after that, your gun would be completely taken apart. Now I need to go ahead and fix my problem here, and I'll show you reassembly.